Hello, thanks for stopping by. This is Grid Picks for the Commodore 64, released by Cytronic and RGCD in 2020. This is a modern puzzle game for the Commodore 64, and it's one of those titles that probably would have done pretty well if it was released back in the Commodore's heyday. They did release this one on a cartridge a few years ago, and you can buy a download of this game as well, although you have to run it on an emulator. There are plenty of great emulators out there for the Commodore. Vice is probably at the top of the pile, and it's not that hard to run. In any case, I'm playing this on the C64 Mini Black Edition that they released late last year. I ordered myself one of those systems because I wanted to support that company, and there was a little bit of a fear of missing out. I mean, this one had a very different carousel of games on it, and I really wanted to give them a try. I think this was the second or third game that I really started to play from this system, and I have to say it's pretty great. We have a nonogram puzzle game, and it's basically a picture logic puzzle. We have an empty grid in front of us. It starts small, but then it gets larger after a cluster of levels. You're going to see numbers off to the side of each row and on top of each column. The numbers will tell you how many boxes in the line or row that you're looking at have sequential color fills in them. If you have the number 1, that means somewhere in that row there's one solid block, which also means when you find that one solid block, the blocks in that column to the left and the right of it cannot have another solid block in it. The same thing goes for columns. Rows and columns are going to have multiple numbers associated with them in most cases, and you have to use the correct logic to figure out where the blocks are supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a guessing game, although I'm sure you could have at least some minor success on some of these levels if you guess, but it is designed, apparently, to have a logical way to correctly figure out where all the blocks are supposed to be. I have to say, I've been having a really fun time with this puzzle concept. It's simple enough, and it completely works as it is. There are 100 levels to play, and they certainly tend to get more difficult as you move forward. I was 30 puzzles in as I started writing this script, and by the time I finished it, I'm already 50 plus puzzles in. The difficulty ratchets up every 10 levels, roughly, is what I've been experiencing, and the puzzles that I'm currently on are taking me upwards of 20 minutes to figure some of them out. It's one of those games that as you play, you sort of have to learn how to develop tactics for how the game is supposed to go. And I remember that when I first started playing Sudoku, originally it wasn't that hard to understand, until you started to get into the more difficult puzzles where you had to get deeper into the logic to figure out where things are supposed to go. This feels similar to that in some capacity. In each puzzle, you're basically creating a picture. However, when you're looking at a 10 by 10 grid up close, it's not like you can always visually look at the blocks and just understand what the picture is supposed to be, and then just fill the rest in, or at least I can't. I stick to the numbers and the logic calculations. I think it's best to do it that way because trying to backtrack to figure out what you missed, it's more difficult to go backwards than it is to fill something in based on the logic. You know, if you just guess that there's something there, that's where I go astray. You play the game in sequence, these different puzzles, so you're not able to jump to level 100 to see what it's like, and when you do beat a puzzle, it gives you a code that you can write down. You can get to those levels later if you type that code in, but this is the C64 Mini Black Edition, and it offers save states, which is great for me, because I like to just be able to pick this up and do a puzzle or two, and then put it down. You're not under any timer, but it does keep time for you as you go through each individual puzzle. I appreciate how they use the joystick in this game. You select the space you want, and you press the button once to go from blank to filled. If you press the button a second time, it goes from filled to an X, which is what you would use to basically indicate that it needs to be blank, and that you've proven that it can't be a positive. You're going to use a lot of X's in this game, and it's a way to remember that you've proven a negative, as opposed to finding a positive. In this game, it seems that sometimes proving a negative is just as important, because it gets you closer to your correct selection. When you finish a puzzle, you get to see what the picture is, and on the main screen that shows you all the puzzles, you can now see a better representation, because a 10 by 10 grid that you're looking at up close, it's not something you can easily always understand, but when you see it as an icon size, a lot of those puzzles make a lot more sense. Now, as a puzzle game for the Commodore 64, these graphics are perfectly sufficient. They look just fine. And there's really no fluff in this one. It just gets the job done, and it gets you to do the important stuff, which is working on the logic of these puzzles. sounds pretty good for the game, actually. And although the music is a loop, and you're going to find that if you play it for any long period of time, you might want to turn it down. But there are multiple tracks, and the tracks are all good, and if you're playing for a long time, you can just switch the loop. I was 2 hours into the first loop before I realized you can just press an F key to change the tune. I wasn't paying attention to that at all. I was so enthralled with the puzzle. So, change the tune, get something a little more palatable for a while, I suppose. It's a great feature to have. It's awesome, and the fact is the tunes are actually all pretty good. So, we have a clever puzzler here for the Commodore 64, and it makes you work through logic puzzles in a way that I wasn't expecting when I picked this up. Honestly, this was just sitting on the carousel, and I hadn't looked at it, so I popped it on, and then I got a couple puzzles into it, and I really started to like it. This one is a total win for me. I'm a fan of the C64 Mini to begin with, and I feel like this Black Edition really has exceeded my expectations, and I'm only like 3 or 4 games into this. Retrogames.biz keeps releasing consoles like this, and I really appreciate what they're doing. This is really working for me. Well, that is all I have today for Grid Picks with Commodore 64. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and I hope to catch you on another video.